Like many characters in South Park, Craig Tucker initially started as a pretty basic character without much focus, but quickly evolved into a major recurring player, and at this point, a fan favorite. Out of all the boys in South Park, Craig is probably the most cynical, blunt, and self-aware, which leads to some great interactions.
When we get back home, we'll get you your money back, and we'll never talk to you again. How's that?
That would be great, thank you.
But beneath his emotionally detached exterior, there's a level of passion that comes out from time to time, which always makes for a hilarious and sometimes heartfelt contrast. So join me as we explore what makes Craig Tucker the funniest cynic in South Park. You know, Craig's apathy is very funny and all, but one thing that nobody should be apathetic about is their health, which brings me to today's video sponsor, ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click instantly to book an appointment. And ZocDoc isn't just for one type of care. They have more than 100,000 providers across nearly every specialty. From primary care to dental health, eye care to urgent care to mental health, they have it all. It's the one-stop shop for all your healthcare needs, plus it's completely free to use. And when you find the doctor you need, you can look at their actual appointment openings, choose a time that works for you, and instantly book a visit with a click of a button. Plus, ZocDoc helps you get appointments fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking, and you can even score same-day appointments if you need them. No need to call doctor's offices and wait on hold either. With ZocDoc, you can do everything online. Stop waiting, stop guessing, and start getting the care you need. Go to ZocDoc.com/Johnny2Cellos to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Johnny2Cellos to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today.
Why can't you behave?
I don't know.
Craig first debuted way back in Season 1, but only as a background character for the first couple seasons. His true introduction wouldn't come until Season 3's Rainforest Schmainforest, and it's a perfect encapsulation of his character.
I tell you what, young man, you're gonna be held back a grade if you don't Did you just flip me off?
No.
Craig's habit of flipping people off was more prominent in the early seasons and wouldn't be as much of a thing moving forward, at least until Fractured But Whole, where giving people the finger became an attack for him. That was a great callback. As you can see, Craig is a bit of a shit starter, and apparently the other parents in town agree, calling Craig a bad influence on their boys. I mean, if they only knew what the kids got into without Craig. Though in fairness, according to Mr. Mackey, Craig gets sent to his office on a daily basis. Craig is fully aware that he's a troublemaker, but he's rather apathetic about it. In fact, he's apathetic about most things. He's not one to get emotional, and he rarely has a stake in anything that's going on, but that's what makes it all the more funny when he stirs the pot anyway. His calm, deadpan delivery, juxtaposed with his antagonism towards those that annoy him, never gets old. That antagonistic nature even resurfaces in the Stick of Truth video game, where Mackey is forced to station hall monitors throughout the entire school, since Craig has previously been broken out of detention.
They're gonna get you, Craig. You're not getting out of detention.
I'll be out of here in 10 minutes.
It isn't just Mackey, however. Craig appears to have a problem with authority figures in general. In Le Petit Tourette, he laments that he can't curse out multiple adults without consequences the way Cartman and Thomas can.
He's the luckiest kid in the world. If I could say shitballs to the principal, I'd be so happy. If I could call Chris Hansen an asshole-licking dick fart to his face, I would be so happy.
Craig has no problem telling it like it is, of course, so you would think that he would happily curse around the principal. However, while he is brutally honest, he's also very logical, almost to a fault. In most cases, anything he does is driven by what is the most optimal choice for him in any given moment. This makes him one of the more neutral characters in South Park. Of course, every character's alignment in this show fluctuates from time to time. Pretty much everyone has had a chance to play the good guy, the bad guy, and much in between. But Craig has been truly neutral from day one. His selfishness is more petty than anything. Compared to someone like, say, Cartman, who is just full-on psychopathic, Craig's approach is a lot less vindictive most of the time. In The Return of the Fellowship to the Two Towers, Craig briefly joins the boys in an attempt to return the misplaced porno tape to the video store, but gives up once things become too complicated. When the 6th graders close in, Cartman urges the group to cross the river, claiming that 6th graders are weak to water, and this is just the final straw for Craig.
Whatever. I'm going back to play with the Harry Potter kids.
This is a pattern we'll see more of with Craig, and it doesn't seem to stem from laziness or cowardice. Instead, it's a purely logical strategy aimed at protecting his own peace. He simply bails when he decides it's time to bail. It's a solid survival instinct, but it often leaves the other boys feeling burned. In Fish Sticks, after Cartman attempts to take half the credit for Jimmy's Fish Sticks joke, Kyle encourages Jimmy to stand up for himself and fight for full credit. Craig, however, always the practical one, suggests that Jimmy should just let it go.
I like you, Jimmy. but you're not gonna win this. Consider yourself lucky he's only asking for half.
Craig clearly has a deep understanding of Cartman's character here. He assesses how out-of-pocket Cartman can be and how drastically things will escalate if he tries to fight it. While Kyle's approach is morally correct, sometimes Craig's path of least resistance is the more optimal move, not because it's just, but because it's just more peaceful. And hey, wouldn't you know it? He was totally right about that one. Even though he's deadpan most of the time, he has shown moments of true whimsy. I mean, who could forget Spaceman Craig?
Spaceman Craig.
In Elementary School Musical, he even joins in on the singing and dancing, something very much outside of his usual character. Moments like this, however, are few and far between. Even when Craig is being affectionate or expressing genuine joy, his tone of voice rarely gives it away. With all that said, how do these traits come together in shaping his dynamic with the main boys?
Hey, Craig. Hey, don't flip me off, you son of a bitch.
Craig initially functions as a somewhat antagonistic presence. Part of this may stem from Tweak vs. Craig, where the boys pit him against Tweak in a fight simply to win a petty bet. Even after both are hospitalized, they continue to egg them on.
Craig's family came on and said Tweak was the wuss, and then punched Tweak's mom in the Hooters. Ah, you son of a bitch! I'm gonna kick your ass!
While this episode is never explicitly stated to be the reason for Craig's disdain of the main boys, and there are other factors that we'll get into in a little bit, it very well may have played a role early on. Craig's position as a rival is kickstarted by him and his friend group, also known as Craig and Those Guys. The group consists of Tolkien, Jimmy, Clyde, and sometimes Tweak, who is of course now Craig's boyfriend, and Jason White of all people, rest in peace. This group is first introduced properly in the episode South Park is Gay, where Craig's gang tries to out-metro the four boys, being very antagonistic for no real reason, and especially ripping on Kyle for not joining in on the fad. Stan and Craig even drag their dads into the rivalry. In the end, though, they settle their differences for the greater good of metrosexual pride. The boys famously have another run-in with Craig's crew in Good Times with Weapons, though this time they're the ones who antagonize Craig, specifically going to his house just to rub their ninja weapons in his face. I guess the metrosexual debacle really got to them. Of course, Craig's gang ends up with weapons of their own, and they have their iconic clash. Once again, though, they come together for the greater good of finding Butters. Well, greater good is a strong word. Craig's gang initially didn't want to help at all, but Cartman threatened to snitch on them if they ended up in trouble. So in the end, it was mostly to cover their own asses. But as we've discussed, Craig will ultimately do what's best for him if it comes down to it, which we see in the quest for ratings as well. The boys all try their best to make a solid school news program, but they're overshadowed by Craig's program, Animals Close Up with a Wide-Angle Lens, and he does not hesitate to rub it in their faces.
Your idea took about this much thought, Craig. This much more than you had.
To be fair to Craig, this type of thing makes up like 80% of the videos on the internet now, so he was really ahead of his time. This is the first instance we see of Craig being antagonistic towards his own crew, as Tolkien and Jimmy were actually a part of the news team. His allegiances seem to be a bit flimsy, which I guess maybe lines up with the whole path of least resistance thing. Craig will absolutely rock the boat with his friends when it benefits him. In fact, he's the initial catalyst for the Black Friday trilogy divide. It was him that mentioned wanting a PS4 rather than an Xbox One, and that kickstarted the whole war between the boys in the first place. He ended up on the wrong side of history in-universe, but in the real world, he definitely chose the right side. Craig seems to be ahead of the curve on a lot of these things, huh? He betrays pretty much everybody in the Stick of Truth, abandoning the Fighters of Zaron to join Clyde's Army of Darkness simply because Clyde possessed the Stick of Truth. He even receives his own boss battle, complete with Nazi cows. At the very least, this suggests that his betrayals and fragile loyalty are usually not personal, but strategic. Selfish, yes, but rarely motivated by spite or personal vendettas. That said, he can absolutely be spiteful when he feels compelled to call someone out for lying. He publicly shames Cartman for pretending to own an iPad, and Stan for cutting off his What Would Jesus Do bracelet. He has nothing personally to gain in either case, but his brutal, unwavering honesty suggests that liars and fakers genuinely bother him on a personal level. The same can often be said of the main four boys in general, a dynamic explored in the Pandemic two-parter, not to be confused with the later Pandemic specials. It's kind of wild that South Park has been around long enough to parody a pandemic, only to eventually have to tell stories about a real one. But this two-parter is all about a pan-flute epidemic, and it's one of Craig's most defining episodes to this day. The boys convince Craig to invest the $100 his grandma gave him for his birthday into buying clothes and instruments to form a pan-flute band, a trend that is all the rage. Craig pushes back, seeing right through their bullshit.
You guys never hang out with me. You never invite me to do stuff. But now you want me to be in a band with you because my grandma gave me $100.
He ends up reluctantly agreeing, but in classic South Park fashion, things get out of hand and the pan flute bands are treated almost like a disease.
This is a pan flute epidemic. A pandemic?
The boys even end up in an internment camp in Miami, and thus begins Craig's brutal roasting of the main four boys and constant complaining. See, Craig seems to be keenly aware here that Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny are the main characters, and he is deeply resentful of their shenanigans and lays out why he and apparently everybody else at school will not hang out with them.
You're always coming up with some stupid idea to do something, and then it backfires, and then you end up in some foreign country or in outer space or something.
This is likely the root of Craig's initial rivalry with the boys. It offers deeper insight into all the times he's tried to one-up them, while also revealing how the rest of the school feels, further emphasizing Craig's brutal honesty by contrast. He's the only one with the balls to finally say it. Craig openly calls out the boys' hypocrisy and selfishness, whether it's lending them money they never earned or being dragged into yet another globe-trotting disaster. He rarely resists outright, but his compliance always comes paired with blunt honesty and visible annoyance. It's hilarious and easily some of Craig's best material.
Hey, Craig, you know that money your grandma gave you for your birthday? How would you like to invest in a Peruvian flute band? This is fun. Let's walk for miles through a spooky jungle. That's a shock. I decided to follow you guys, and now I'm in Land of the Giants' Lost World.
Throughout the quarantine camps in Peru, Craig functions as a meta-commentary on the show itself. He repeatedly points out that stuff just happens to the boys because they actively walk into danger, chase mysteries, and never learn from their past mistakes. While most kids are just, quote, falling off their bikes, he is actively rejecting the entire premise of the episode as it takes place, and rejecting the boys' approach to adventure. Craig pointedly does not want adventure. He wants boredom, routine, and to be left alone. But it turns out the pan flute bands were keeping giant guinea creatures from terrorizing the earth. And now the only one who can save everyone is the chosen one, Craig. And what does Craig do with this major bomb of a lore drop? What he always does.
I don't care. I've decided that I'm done. I am choosing not to be a part of this anymore.
Craig takes matters into his own hands and walks away, which forces the boys to follow. Along the way, they keep finding new opportunities for exploration, but all the while, Craig sticks to his guns and keeps on walking, refusing to engage. You gotta respect a kid who stands by his values. The head of Homeland Security, Mykal, who is really just a guinea pirate in disguise, this is a totally normal show by the way, wants to make the guinea creature apocalypse happen and plays sort of a generic villain role, monologuing about his evil schemes and loathing the chosen one. It's a great foil because Craig has no interest in the conflict and wants no part in any of this nonsense.
Craig! You just don't ever stop, do you?
I didn't say anything.
Ironically, his rejection of his destiny is exactly what makes him the chosen one. Craig actively tries to leave, and in doing so, accidentally becomes the savior of the world by stepping on some sort of ancient panel that grants him magical abilities. Even when getting literal lightning powers and stopping the guinea pig apocalypse, he remains completely unimpressed.
Okay, now there's sparks shooting out of my eyes.
His victory ends with a sigh. Craig is disappointed that, despite his best efforts, he still got dragged into the plot, even though he lost literally nothing by being involved and saving the entire world. He's just annoyed that he became involved at all. It's basically on principle. Craig refusing to play along inadvertently made him the hero, the punchline, and the solution all at once. Craig is proven to be astute again, as the boys try to convince him to join a mariachi band at the end of the episode, clearly showing that they are in fact unable to learn from their own mistakes. He may want to take his own advice though, as he does join in on another business venture of theirs, that being the Crack Baby Athletic Association with Cartman. I'm not exactly sure how he weighed the risk-reward ratio on that one. He didn't have to invest anything that time, so I guess that's a plus. While Craig can be selfish, and his feelings about the main boys have been laid out in the open, as time goes on, he does show a propensity for softness and true friendship.
Hey, round of root beers for everyone, on me!
Craig's gang remains a recurring friend group. When we see Craig, it's usually with his typical gang, but the group's rivalry with the main boys has mostly dissipated over time, with both groups regularly eating together in the lunchroom even. This is likely because they've all had to come together on multiple occasions to solve bigger problems over the years. They band together to stop that griefer in World of Warcraft, they try to jumpstart their own superhero franchise, they send Wilsey to the moon, and of course work to find the missing ballots in Obama Wins. It's interesting because because as we've established, Craig is undeniably someone who looks out for himself most of the time. You could argue that helping out in Warcraft or trying to get their superhero franchise off the ground did benefit him personally and may have been motivated by self-interest. However, sending Wilsiax to the moon and helping find the missing election ballots were actions taken purely for the greater good. It is unclear why exactly Craig chose these causes to rally behind. In Wilsiax's case, perhaps Craig genuinely bonded with the whale, especially after the aquarium workers tricked him into believing it could talk.
Hey, that whale talked to me, too. After everyone left the show, I walked up to the glass and he started talking.
With the election ballots, it doesn't seem like something Craig would normally care all that much about. I guess the adventure was relatively minimal and the danger/inconvenience level was low compared to the boy's other escapades. Plus, it sort of ties back into his intolerance for liars and fakes, something we've seen he does not take lightly. And of course, he gets one over on Cartman, someone he clearly dislikes even more than the rest. But you definitely cannot argue that any of these adventures were the path of least resistance for Craig. He also assists everyone during the COVID specials later on. By that point, he's a grown man, so there was plenty of opportunity for character evolution in the interim period, though maybe not so much for Clyde, but we'll get to him another time. Craig may also have a one-on-one friendship with Kenny. Kenny joins Craig's AV Club team to help with his animal show after Cartman refuses to let him join the news crew. Then, in super fun time, they're actually partnered up for the field trip. This may not have been intentional on the show's part, but it does make for some interesting headcanon. Maybe the most selflessly we've seen him act towards one of the main boys is in season 21's Splatty Tomato. In that one, Ike runs away, and when Kyle says he's going to go look for him, Craig, without hesitation, offers his assistance.
I have to find him. We'll help you.
Maybe at this point, after all the adventures they've been on together, he's warmed up to them a little bit. Safe to say that old Craig maybe wouldn't have hung out with this new Craig. It's never explicitly laid out what caused this shift in Craig, but I like to think that a certain someone helped bring out the best in him.
What am I supposed to do?
He's your boyfriend, dude.
I made a whole video talking about Tweek and Craig years ago, so I don't want to rehash everything from that, but there are some extra details I feel like we could go over. Let's be honest, you can't do a Craig video without talking about Tweek. Their relationship forces Craig to grow emotionally without abandoning who he is fundamentally. What starts as a meta joke about performative inclusion slowly becomes one of Craig's most meaningful dynamics. When the show, and eventually the entire town, projects a relationship onto Craig and Tweek through yaoi art of all things, Craig's initial response is pure Craig: irritation, denial, and a desire for the fastest possible exit.
Craig and Tweek, Moonlight Dance.
Dude, what the fuck?
He doesn't question the premise emotionally, he treats it like a problem to solve. His plan to pretend to be gay just long enough for the trend to die out is pragmatic. It's detached and very on brand. But as we know, Tweek improvises an over-the-top breakup story that turns the school against Craig, which forces him into unfamiliar emotional territory. For once, Craig isn't annoyed because things are inconvenient or outlandish. This time, he's genuinely hurt because everybody hates him. I think that moment quietly shifts his character. Craig's sadness becomes the catalyst for his dad's growth as well, leading to one of the most sincere parental moments in the entire series. Ironically, while the town's support for Tweek and Craig is loud, performative, and trend-driven, Craig's dad, who started out resistant to his son being gay, ends up offering unconditional, genuine support. Craig doesn't verbalize it much, but this is one of the first times we see him emotionally affected by how others see and accept him. Although the relationship begins mostly as a joke, it never fully resets. Craig and Tweek continue appearing together, holding hands in the background, their connection normalized rather than constantly spotlighted. What was initially imposed on Craig becomes something he quietly participates in without fanfare. And by the episode Put It Down, Craig's growth has become explicit. His relationship with Tweek is private, established, and real enough that the boys casually refer to Tweek as Craig's boyfriend. Craig approaches Tweek's anxiety the same way he approaches everything, with logic and pragmatic strategy. Solutions. He downplays the danger, offers fixes, gives him distractions, and genuinely believes he's helping. But this time, that approach isn't enough. It isn't the right one for Tweek. The turning point is crucial for Craig as a character. He realizes that Tweek doesn't need his emotions erased or corrected. He needs them acknowledged. This doesn't come naturally to Craig, as we know. This is literally the least emotionally reactive kid in South Park. But when it finally clicks, he adapts. Instead of arguing facts, he listens. He lets Tweek talk, and for the first time, Craig shows emotional intelligence without losing his deadpan nature. This moment always gets me. I see why the town was rooting for the ship. By the end of Put It Down, Craig isn't suddenly super expressive or sentimental, but he shows up more than he used to. He sings with Tweek, supports him publicly, and meets him where he is emotionally. It's a subtle evolution, but an important one. Craig remains apathetic for the most part. He's still blunt and logical, but through Tweek, he learns that caring doesn't always mean fixing. Sometimes it just means being there. It's not all perfect in Paradise, though. They break up for real during Fractured But Whole after the superhero civil war begins, with Craig staying with the Coon and Friends and Tweek joining the newly formed Freedom Pals. This disagreement sparks a petty squabble that you, as the new kid, are forced to mediate. They eventually work it out in counseling, which consists of beating up other kids who have relationship problems written on their shirts. Highlighting his growth, it's actually Craig who extends the olive branch first. The two make up, and if there was any lingering doubt about the legitimacy of Tweek and Craig's relationship, this game solidifies it. Craig's guinea pig Stripe, which he ironically dresses as a guinea pirate, was given to him by Tweek. He refers to himself as gay on multiple occasions, and their battle dialogue is adorably wholesome.
Ow!
Oh my god, they hit Super Craig!
Deep breath, Wonder Tweek.
Super Craig! No! I can't live without you!
It's okay, you can just revive me. Wow, that was the coolest storm ever.
I'm good at storms too, right, Super Craig?
Yes, Tweek, you're the best at storm.
They even have a yaoi ultimate move, and it is art. There is a great role reversal moment where Mephisto is lore dumping to the kids and explaining all of his ridiculous experiments. Craig gradually gets more peeved as Mephisto's experiments not only get stupider, but also more potentially dangerous for innocent people. Normally it's Craig calming Tweek down, but here we have a rare moment where Tweek has to step in to emotionally regulate Craig.
Why the fuck would you make genetically enhanced 6th graders?
Calm down, Super Craig!
Naturally, an outburst from Craig is stemmed more from anger rather than anxiety like it is for Tweek, but it's an excellent highlight for why they work so perfectly. It showcases that Craig is becoming just a little more emotional, while Tweek is becoming a little more grounded. Their struggles, of course, continue. Relationships are work. Craig almost confesses to Cartman that dealing with Tweek can be difficult sometimes, and that he always needs Tweek's attention. Cartman cuts him off, but it's still a big moment. Here is Craig, Mr. Stoic himself, about to open up about his emotions to Eric Cartman. Not exactly the best choice for someone to lend an ear, but it speaks volumes about how far he's come since the early days. I'm happy to report that, despite bickering and emotional highs and lows, they remain together well into the future as seen in the COVID specials. It really seems that Tweek has shown Craig how to be more emotionally in tune, more present, and more selfless. That's why they're such a perfect pair. They cover each other's blind spots. You have an emotional ball of anxiety in Tweek and a stone-cold, unenthused rock in Craig. It's a perfect balance, and it's likely indicative of the Craig we'll continue to see moving forward.
My name is Craig Tucker.
Craig Tucker works as a character because he grows, but also doesn't fundamentally change his demeanor. He doesn't suddenly become hyper-emotional, sentimental, or heroic in the traditional sense. He stays cynical. He stays deeply unimpressed and rather annoyed by most of the world. But over time, the scope of what he's willing to care about quietly expands. What makes Craig such a standout character in South Park is that his apathy comes from selectivity, which is a great juxtaposition for the absurdity of the show. He opts out of chaos because he's acutely aware of how pointless and exhausting it usually is.
What's going on?
Cartman shoved food up his ass and now he's trying to crap out his mouth.
Oh.
And yet, when something does matter to him, whether it's honesty, fairness, or the people he lets into his inner circle, he shows up in the only way he knows how, calmly and practically, without making a big deal out of it. With the boys, Craig acts as a walking reality check. He's the voice that says what everyone else is thinking and calls out the fact that many of the main boys' problems are self-inflicted, that adventure isn't destiny, and that peace is sometimes the smarter option. That same mindset is also what makes Craig an effective, if reluctant, leader. He rarely seeks control, attention, or authority, but people consistently follow his lead anyway. Tolkien, Jimmy, Clyde, and the others orbit around him for a reason. In conflicts, he's often the first to assess the situation, call out the bullshit, and choose the most effective path forward, even if that path is walking away. His leadership isn't grandiose or valiant by any means, but it is very stabilizing. When Craig moves, others adjust.
Everyone who wants to get PS4s, join with us.
No, We can't divide like this.
And with Tweak, we see the fullest version of Craig. Not a different Craig, just a more complete one. He learns that logic doesn't solve everything, that fixing isn't the same as listening, and that caring doesn't require losing himself. Craig doesn't meet Tweak with grand gestures or emotional speeches, he meets him with presence, with patience. And for Craig Tucker, that's huge. In a show built on escalation and moral extremes, Craig remains grounded. He's not a hero, he's not a villain, he doesn't care enough to commit to any particular alignment, he's just a kid trying to protect his peace in a world that keeps insisting on insanity. And somehow, that makes him one of the most honest and quietly evolved characters South Park has ever written.
We don't always have control over what happens to us. We are but players on the stage of life.
Folks, thanks so much for tuning into another South Park video. This one was actually written by Mykal Williams, who has been helping me out with the channel for a while now. His work is great. This is an excellent script from Mykal. Please check out his other work on his channel Go Play Hero, and stay tuned for more. Peace.
I stay mellow watching Johnny two cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny two cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.